Sword and sorcery as a genre became what it is today because of the first Conan movie, and while the genre is filled with evil warlords fighting with swords and armies of henchmen, you must agree that the best kind of bad guys are the ones that are cosmic in nature, and they get even better when they have some Lovecraftian elements tied to them. But how did these Lovecraftian elements find their way into Conan stories? Well, the explanation goes back as far as 1930. Both Lovecraft and Conan's creator, Robert E. Howard, were veteran writers for the magazine Weird Tales. One day, Howard wrote a letter to Weird Tales praising one of Lovecraft's reprints of H.P. Lovecraft's The Rats in the Walls. Editor Farnsworth Wright forwarded this letter to Lovecraft, who responded with affection to Howard, and the two of them became fast friends. So much so that the latter would get included in the so-called Lovecraft Circle. And from that day, the two writers, especially Howard, would reference Lovecraft's work into their own, and they would often borrow elements mutually. I mean, take beings like Set, for example. The Serpent God, he's so powerful that he's practically unkillable, and all you can do is hope he does not come to Earth. But there are, like, several other such instances where you see cosmic and Lovecraftian villains in Howard stories, aka Conan stories, and in this video, we are going to explore the 19 major Conan the Barbarian's cosmic villains who will bend your mind and your reality. So, let's begin, shall we? Kulan Gath. Kulan Gath is definitely a great Conan villain, and if you follow Red Sonja for even a short while, you realize he is her true nemesis as well. He first appeared in Conan the Barbarian issues number 14 and number 15 back in the 70s, and since then, if you talk of the Hyborian Age, it's difficult to overlook Kulan Gath. Kulan is a sorcerer of serious power, once married to a witch named Xaltotun, and his early ambition was to seize the might of Shuma-Gorath, but his ambitions become his doom and he dies, but he manages to revive himself through immortality. Then he battles Conan again, and later falls alongside his bride at the hands of Shuma-Gorath for daring to control that power. A millennium passes, and Kulan Gath returns yet again, this time with sights set on the modern world. Here is where things take a jog to the crazy, and that too in the best comic book way possible. So he clashes with Spider-Man, reshapes reality into his own era, and somehow turns Mary Jane Watson into Red Sonja. He later confronts Venom, steals the symbiote from Eddie Brock, and fights Spider-Man and Red Sonja while bonded to that alien power. The symbiote eventually slips away thanks to Brock, and Kulan dies once more. Of course, death has always been just a hiccup for him, and he has resurfaced numerous times, only to cross paths with the X-Men and the Avengers, and as of today, he continues his rivalry with Red Sonja in Dynamite Entertainment's comics. He even has a son named Dinar. As for abilities, Kulan Gath wields immense sorcery, bends reality, manipulates minds, and when reduced to a ghostly state, can possess others. Immortality, cunning strategy, and deep magical knowledge make him less a single villain and more a recurring curse that keeps finding its way back into the story. Aman. Aman is the primary villain of the 90s animated series Conan the Adventurer. He began as a giant Gila monster, then Aman transforms him into a serpent man to act as a more capable servant of Set. Aman betrays Aman, steals the Black Ring of Power, and takes control of the Snake Cult. From there, he rules an empire of serpent men and becomes the chief servant of the dark god Set, who grants him much of his strength. Set, banished to the void long ago, tasks Aman with building pyramids crowned by magical rings forged from star metal, so he can return to the mortal plane. Aman earns Conan's hatred early on when he turns the young barbarian's parents and grandfather into living statues after Conan's father refuses to help him. Conan fights not only to free his family, but to stop Aman from handing the world to Set. Now, this guy has three forms. The original spotted Gila monster, the second one is a tall muscular serpent man with green scales and a tail, and finally a hybrid serpent human granted by Set after mastery of the Black Ring. In that final form, he wears scaled green armor, a horned helmet shaped like a Gila monster head, and a red cape, armor implied to be made from his own flesh. His personality matches his look, so he's very cruel, manipulative, prone to violent mood swings, intolerant of failure, and fiercely loyal to Set out of fear fear as much as devotion. In the series finale, he briefly succeeds, only for Conan to destroy the Black Ring, free his parents, and revert Wrath-Amon to his original creature form, after which Ram-Amon is presumed to end him off-screen for his betrayal. Shuma-Gorath. Shuma-Gorath is one of Marvel's greater cosmic threats, and although in the Marvel comics Doctor Strange faces Shuma-Gorath the most, this vile freak of nature has also clashed with the likes of the Scarlet Witch, the Invaders, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, Vision, and even the Guardians of the Galaxy. He belongs to the Many-Angled Ones, also called the Old Ones, a race of ancient eldritch entities that exist between realities. At one point, he even received the title Progenitor of the Grave Realm. Due to licensing issues with heroic signatures, the character later took the name Gargantos in the Vision and the Scarlet Witch Volume 3, Number 4 from 2025. But he is still an ancient multiversal deity who demands blood sacrifice and seeks dominion over every dimension without exception. Looks-wise, Shuma-Gorath is an immensely huge, otherworldly being that towers over us mere mortals. His body bristles with writhing tentacles, multiple glowing eyes scatter across his form, and his green skin leaks a viscous substance that marks any place that Shuma-Gorath manifests. The sheer scale of him is enough to scare the living shit out of people, and honestly, I would not last 5 seconds in the same place as this dude. Personality-wise, he is 100% malevolence. He feeds on cosmic energy, drains entire dimensions of life, and pursues conquest with sadistic intent. Power defines his existence. He regenerates from devastating attacks, alters his physical form, teleports, levitates, phases through space, and communicates through telepathy across realms. His energy output can wipe out galaxies, and within his own domain, he holds absolute authority. He also exists simultaneously across multiple planes, which means defeating him in one place rarely ever defeats him. The only real vulnerability you can find is disrupting the cosmic energies he consumes, though pulling that off would be an enormous challenge in itself. So no, you cannot defeat him. Daggoth, the Dreaming God. Daggoth, also known as the Dreaming God, is the overarching antagonist of the 1984 film Conan the Destroyer. Long before mankind, Daggoth fought other gods in a massive divine war where his jeweled horn, the source of his power, breaks off. He falls to earth weakened, his body turns to stone, and he becomes a statue of a handsome reclining man with a hole in his forehead. Centuries later, Queen Taramis of Shadazar acquires the statue and treats it like her private possession, or rather an obsession. Her followers worship it in the palace anteroom, but she often keeps it in her chambers, bathing it in the blood of virgin handmaidens, and she even makes love to it. According to the scrolls of Skelos, restoring the horn and sacrificing a virgin at the moment of rebirth would resurrect Daggoth under the queen's control, or so her and her Grand Vizier Xantares believe. Taramis chooses her niece, Princess Jenna, as the sacrifice. Conan's group retrieves the horn through deception. Jenna places it into the statue, and the ritual begins. Zula kills Xantares before he can complete the sacrifice, which interrupts the process. The statue then transforms into a huge reptilian beast, rather than the beautiful god Taramis expected. Daggoth unleashes storms and lightning, shrugs off weapons, and even crushes a guard's head underfoot. When Taramis attempts to kill Jenna herself, Conan pushes her toward the creature and Daggoth impales her with his horn. Akira reveals that the horn is his life. Conan tears it free, weakening the god until a final sword strike ends him.
Sacred flame, protect us from the cold!
Akivasha. Akivasha is a minor antagonist in Robert E. Howard's 1935 Conan tale, The Hour of the Dragon, yet later adaptations make her more terrifying and portray her as a major villain. For instance, in the 1997 film Kull the Conqueror, her role merges with Xaltotun and Tia Carrere brings her to life.
In the original story, she is basically a legendary vampire-like being who dwells in the Temple of Set in Kemi, the capital of Stygia.
She survives by feeding on priests, magicians, and captured virgins, and essentially lives in shadows and whispers. When Conan enters the temple in search of the heart of Ahriman, she approaches him disguised as a pale maiden and offers her guidance. Inside her chambers, he discovers her empty sarcophagus and realizes her true nature. She attempts to seduce him with promises of immortality and youth sustained by his blood. Conan resists her spell, draws his sword, and forces her back into darkness, leaving the chamber to her eerie laughter. The film version also paints her backstory in a far larger canvas. At the dawn of civilization,
Akivasha ruled the demon-led empire of Acheron until the god Valka banished her and her forces to the underworld.
millennia later, she returned through the schemes of conspirators and the warlock Aneros, who followed ancient scrolls to resurrect her. Disguised as a noblewoman, she enchants King Kull and stages his apparent death, framing Zareta. Kull escapes, rescues Zareta, and confronts Akivasha as she reveals her demonic form. In the final clash, Kull transfers Valka's divine breath through a kiss, destroying her. What fascinates me is how she shifts from a shadowed seductress in prose to a full-scale demonic queen on screen, yet in both versions her weapon remains the same: temptation before terror. Zath. Zath is a colossal spider god worshipped in the Hyborian city of Yzud, also known simply as the City of the Spider God. Whether Zath descends from the ancient spider deity Om remains uncertain, but the origin hardly matters once you see what Zath really is. The priests of Yzud consider Zath to be a living god. They raise entire herds of cattle to feed it, and they erect a massive statue in its honor, setting 8 precious jewels where its eyes should be. Over time, Zath produces hundreds, perhaps thousands of offspring, known as the Children of Zath. Faradun, the chief priest, planned to raise this brood into an army meant to conquer all of Zamora and strip King Mithridates of his rule. Conan returned to Yzud for personal reasons, as he wanted to rescue the kidnapped Jamila so her husband would remove the bounty on his head. During that rescue, he uncovers Faradun's plan and even manages to incapacitate one of the children. He also meets Rudabeh, a temple dancer who helps hide him within the shrine. I will admit, this feels like the calm before the worst kind of storm. In the temple basement, Conan comes face to face with Zath itself, and even his strength proves ineffective. When Zath hears Rudabeh's voice, it turns away from Conan and kills her instead, which was more painful than any punch Conan could receive. Trying to escape, Conan stumbles into the lair of the children and barely slips out through a trap door. He sets the basement ablaze. Zath smashes through the temple walls to flee the fire while Faradun attempts to stop it with magic. Smoke breaks Faradun's focus and Zath kills him. Conan hurls burning torches onto the spider's back, and its violent collapse brings the temple down, crushing or trapping many of its offspring. With the cult broken, Conan rallies Yzud's soldiers to wipe out the remaining weakened children of Zath, ending the spider god's reign for good. Set, the Serpent God. Set, often called Father Set, is an ancient elder god and a near all-powerful demon who once ruled a young Earth beside other primordial beings. But this rule came to an end. A massive purge drove those elder gods away to rid the world of their corruption. Yet Set already had darker ambitions. He was among the first to turn rogue, and his vision was never about balance or harmony. He wanted a world ruled by reptiles, the same dominance they held during the age of the dinosaurs, with mammalian life either enslaved or wiped out entirely. Even after exile, Set's influence never truly vanished. During the Hyborian Age, various cults and dark sorcerers such as Thulsa Doom and Thoth-Amon continued to worship him, keeping his name alive through rituals and forbidden magic. But the most disturbing part about Set is that he is too huge to be fully destroyed or defeated, and he lies hidden in another dimension, waiting, plotting, and pushing his endless crusade to return to the living world. And if that return ever happens, it would be apocalyptic. Wrarrl, the Devourer of Souls. Wrarrl, often called the Devourer of Souls, is a main villain across issues number 190 through 200 of Marvel's Conan the Barbarian comics. He is an ancient god older than recorded history, worshipped by a Hyborian cult that eventually summons him, despite Conan's attempts to stop them. The problem is, they also summon the Destroyer of Worlds. Realizing his own dimension would fall next, Wrarrl devours the souls of his own cult to gain enough power to kill that entity, and basically sacrifices his own life in the process. He later returns through the Council of Seven, repays them by killing 7 apostles, then roams the world hunting power and souls. He manipulates a prince of Cyreb to reach a girl named Solace, summons the demon Zuthul for a Shadu, battles Caleb the Destroyer, and eventually frees Thulsa Doom to learn Solace's origins. Interestingly, however, when Wrarrl discovers her cat holds the full power of the Elder Gods, he kidnaps both and absorbs that power, gaining near-cosmic strength. Bound by honor, he agrees to repay Zuthul by seducing the most beautiful woman in the Western Kingdoms, Sephra of Aquilonia. which gives Xuthal and Thulsa Doom time to plot his fall. Conan finally defeats Wrarl's demonic form in a long duel, yet he awakens as a human on a beach, with Xuthal choosing companionship over vengeance. His abilities range from soul consumption to mountain-sized growth and planet-level destruction after absorbing the Elder God's power. Thulsa Doom. Thulsa Doom is one of the oldest and most sinister villains, and this guy has stood against not just Conan, but also Kull the Conqueror, Conan's ancestor. In fact, he was a Kull villain before being a Conan villain. Unlike several of the barbarian's enemies, Thulsa Doom is beyond brute force and playing warlord. He is an undead sorcerer, ruthless, homicidal, and frighteningly patient, the type of enemy who waits centuries if that is what it takes. His first appearance came in Robert E. Howard's Kull short story, Delcarday's Cat, and from there he grew into Kull's primary nemesis, later extending his shadow into the Conan mythos as well. In many ways, he is like the blueprint for later dark wizards such as Thoth-Amon, Thugra-Khotan, and Xaltotun, and he has influenced bad guys from other franchises, for instance Skeletor, the ugly skull-faced uncle of He-Man. In the Marvel Kull comics, Thulsa Doom appears repeatedly, most importantly in Kull the Conqueror, issues number 3, number 7, and number 11, based on Howard's By This Axe I Rule. He commands the Black Legion, observes battles through magic crystals, and even manipulates curses such as the Throne of Torana, which traps any scarred king forever. That particular scheme backfires when Kull forces the crown onto Thulsa's own head, draining his power and bringing the city down around him. Yet it seems that killing Thulsa Doom for good is next to impossible. He resurfaces in Marvel Preview number 19, later reappears in Savage Sword of Conan, and even crosses paths with the Celtic hero Cormac Mac Art. Of course, James Earl Jones played him in Conan the Barbarian and was the architect of all of Conan's problems in the film. And if you ask me, this guy was even more evil than Darth Vader, another character that James Earl Jones played. Jurgal Zod. Jurgal Zod rules his own dimension and commands a sizable horde of lesser demons, and despite that, he still ends up driven out. His encounters with Conan revolve around domination and survival, the kind of clashes where neither side enters with half measures. Personality-wise, Jurgal Zod embodies the classic Dark Lord archetype. He pursues conquest without hesitation and takes visible pleasure in cruelty. There is no tragic backstory, no moral conflict, no redeeming sliver hidden beneath the surface. He exists as a manifestation of evil itself, almost detached from human traits altogether, and this absence of empathy is what defines him. What makes him interesting to me is his purity of intent. He does not negotiate, he does not repent, and he does not soften. He moves only toward dominance, misery, and control. Master of Monolith. The Master of the Monolith first appeared in Robert E. Howard's short story, The Black Stone. It is a grotesque, toad-like horror, and it seems like this one was pulled straight from the darkest corners of Lovecraftian imagination. It is an ancient eldritch entity worshipped as a god by a degenerate cult hidden within the Hungarian mountain village of Sthoga. The creature embodies humanity's worst traits like greed, lust, malice, and yet the mountain men revere it. They gather around a towering black monolith that serves it both as altar and dimensional gateway, and offer sacrifices on midsummer nights and craft idols in its hideous likeness. For years they have abducted women and children from nearby lowlands to continue their rituals unchecked, until Turkish warriors marched into the region. According to the warrior scribe Selim Bahadur, the confrontation took place inside a cavern high in the hills, where the Turks cornered the bloated beast. They slew it with flame, ancient steel blessed in earlier times, and incantations older than Arabia itself. Even Salim's recorded words tremble as he describes the earth shaking, death cries, and the soldiers who perished beside the creature in ways he refuses to detail. Centuries later, both cult and monster have long since turned to dust, supposedly trapped in hell. Yet on Midsummer's Night, the entity rises again, incorporeal but unmistakably present, kinda like a ghost worshipped by ghosts. The Changeling. The Changeling is one of the strangest foes that Conan has ever had the displeasure of encountering, and I mean strange in the cosmic sense, not the usual sorcerer or warlord variety. This creature originates from a distant planet with an environment nothing like Earth. After violating the laws of its own society and fearing severe punishment, it escapes in a spaceship and lands on Earth during the Hyborian Age. The problem is that it cannot breathe Earth's air. Fortunately for it, a gemstone device allows it to assume human form for short periods, though each transformation costs the life of the person copied. After several such impersonations, it finally takes the identity of Wrarrl Beldok. Unfortunately, a thief named Zareg steals the gemstone. Conan encounters the disguised alien amid smoke and flames and agrees to help retrieve the gem in exchange for half the riches.
Their journey stretches across Stygia and Kush, joined briefly by a tavern girl named Purani.
While Zingaran squadrons sent by Thok pursue Conan. The Changeling weakens without the gemstone, yet its alien aura scares off yellow-eyed ghouls that attack them. Later, Conan saves it from cannibals, and they finally reach Zareg's cavern beneath a waterfall. When Conan battles a giant spider, the Changeling regains the gem and repays the favor by draining Conan's life force and taking his protoplasmic form. The imposter leaves, gets captured by Zingarian soldiers, and faces immediate execution. With its death, Conan's strength returns and the alien threat ends as abruptly as it began. Tsathoggua. Tsathoggua, often called the Sleeper of Nakai, is a Lovecraftian creature that appeared first in the 1931 novella The Whisperer in Darkness and belongs to the Circle of the Great Old Ones. He has a reputation not for loud destruction but for quiet, creeping evildoing. As the nickname suggests, he resides deep within the lightless caverns of Nakai, surrounded by an endless host of servants who obey him like slaves. These followers include corrosive black blobs that move like living tar and the Vormis, a hostile race of cave-dwelling humanoids who see him as their dark master. Even his worshippers begin to resemble him over time, adopting the same toad-like features that symbolize their devotion. Appearance-wise, Tsathoggua is covered in dark fur, obese in form, and carries bat-like traits such as pointed ears and piercing red eyes. Lovecraft himself compares him to a pudgy toad and a sleepy sloth, which creates an odd contrast. You expect explosive fury from a cosmic god, yet Tsathoggua is more about lethargy, as if he prefers stillness over motion. That laziness does not make him harmless though. I always find it more disturbing than rage and proactive violence. Varna, the first vampire. Varna is one of the earliest and most powerful vampires, a being whose influence stretches across centuries, and long before the modern age of heroes begins. He once served within the cult of the Darkholders under Thulsa Doom, and after King Kull of Valusia left him mortally wounded, sorcerers from pre-cataclysmic Atlantis transformed him into a vampire. He later became the last survivor of that Atlantean blood and ruled Earth's vampires until 1459. Over time, he crossed paths with Conan, Red Sonja, Zula, and even Thor. Eventually, weary of endless existence, he chose Dracula as his successor and forced him to drink his blood, passing on much of his power before walking into sunlight and ending his own life. Centuries later, Marie Laveau sought vampire blood and used dark rituals involving Morgana Blessing and Victor, while Doctor Strange intervened with spells from the Book of the Vishanti. Her incantation from the Darkhold revived Varna through the sacrifice of Brother Voodoo's servant Bambu. Varna rejected her alliance, clashed with Strange, and fled after an incantation of oblivion forced him to relive centuries of nothingness. Much later, during the global resurrection of all vampires, he returned again and became the central threat of Blood Hunt by possessing Blade and directing vampire forces against nearly every Marvel hero, including the Avengers. In terms of abilities, Varna exceeds most vampires. He creates new vampires through his blood, lifts immense weight, heals rapidly, resists disease, and commands telepathy over humans, animals, and nearly all vampires except Dracula. He also alters form into bat, wolf, mist, or even a huge giant, while still remaining functionally immortal as long as fresh blood sustains him. Graven. Graven is the central antagonist of the 2007 Conan video game, a fallen sorcerer whose hunger for ultimate power defines his entire existence. He is also revealed to be Kaldin's brother, which adds a bitter personal edge to the conflict. Long before the events of the game, Graven belonged to an ancient race tasked with guarding powerful magic alongside Kaldin. Both brothers swore to protect those secrets, yet Graven broke that oath and began seeking immortality at any cost. He sacrificed many of his own children to achieve it, with only one daughter escaping through Kaldin's help. Eventually, he imprisoned the gods of the ancient world within his own body, but even that did not satisfy him. He unleashed a curse known as the Black Death, turning men into bloodthirsty savages and stealing their souls in order to reshape the world in his own image. Graven fears death above all else and commits unspeakable acts to avoid it, even while spreading destruction across the land. He blames the imprisoned gods for his actions and says that their anger guides him, though his behavior reveals personal ambition more than divine influence. His sorcery allows him to create black substance minions, enchant armor, and alter his form, including a towering four-armed shape during his battle with Conan. He fights with tendrils instead of fingers and uses magic to pierce the ground or spawn creatures, yet Conan still defeats him in direct combat. Although rituals grant him a form of immortality, he can still die by a sword through the chest. When the gods are finally freed, they revive him with true immortality, strip away his powers, and drag him to their realm for eternal torment. Xaltotun. Xaltotun first appeared in Robert E. Howard's The Hour of the Dragon as one of Conan's most dangerous foes, and later appears again through Marvel and Dark Horse comic adaptations.
He once ruled Acheron, an ancient empire built on dark wizardry and devotion to the Serpent God Set.
Long after his fall, a group of conspirators, namely Orastus, Tarascus, Amalric, and Valerius, resurrect him, hoping his power will help overthrow King Conan of Aquilonia. That plan backfires because Xaltotun cares little for their politics.
His real objective was far darker, and what he intended was to rebuild Acheron through a massive blood sacrifice and reclaim dominion for himself.
When Conan finally confronts him, brute strength proves useless. Xaltotun easily brushes the Cimmerian aside and even paralyzes him, which tells you everything about the gap in sorcery. The turning point came through the Heart of Ahriman, an artifact that allows Conan and his allies to defeat him. Among all the evil wizards Conan faces, Xaltotun often feels like the most formidable. I always notice the similarity with Akivasha from Call the Conqueror as well. Both ancient sorcerers, both resurrected by conspirators, and both far more interested in their own empires than the fools who bring them back. Marique. Marique is the ruthless daughter of Kalar Zim, and from the very first moments you understand she is not to be taken lightly.
When Zim raids Conan's village to collect the final piece of the Mask of Acheron,
Marique is right beside him as the entire settlement falls and young Conan becomes the sole survivor who vows revenge. Later, father and daughter strike a monastery in search of the pure blood. An elderly monk named Fasir senses danger and sends Tamara away, but Zim's men pursue her carriage. Conan intercepts them, defeats the soldiers, and rescues Tamara. He then captures one of Zim's men, Remo, forces information out of him, and catapults him back to the enemy camp as a warning. The next encounter between Conan and Zim turns further brutal. Conan pretends interest in trading Tamara for gold, attacks Zim, and Marique steps in with sorcery, summoning soldiers from sand and striking Conan with a poison-laced boomerang sword. Tamara helps him escape, and after recovery, Conan continues the pursuit. When Tamara is eventually captured again, Conan seeks help from Ela Shan and infiltrates Zim's stronghold while Zim prepares a ritual to drain her blood and activate the mask. Inside the crumbling castle, Conan frees Tamara and clashes with Zim. Marique confronts Tamara during the collapse, but Conan intervenes, severs Marique's hand, and Tamara delivers the final push that sends her into a pit where a massive spike ends her life.
Xaltana, the Witch Queen of Acheron. Xaltana, remembered as the Witch Queen of Acheron, ruled one of the darkest empires of the ancient world and wielded some serious powers during her reign. Her downfall begins when she attempts to shift her people's devotion away from the Serpent God Set and toward a mysterious entity known only as the Demon God of Acheron.
A decision that proves disastrous for her. At some point, the demon does not merely influence her, but takes control of her entirely, and her own subjects, along with the priests of Set, turn against her. They bury her alive inside a sealed tomb located within the very temple she built for the demon's worship.
That temple rests high in the northern mountains of Nemedia, near Aquilonia and the Border Kingdom, in territory associated with the sons of Acheron.
What makes this tale linger in my head is how the end never truly feels like an end. The demon god remains dormant within Xaltana's corpse for thousands of years, neither fully gone nor truly active, almost like a curse waiting for the wrong hand to disturb it.
That disturbance finally comes to place when Conan and Prince Tarascus enter the hidden temple while searching for the lost treasure mines of Acheron.
Their intrusion breaks the long silence and releases releases the demon bound within her remains. So Xaltana's story is not merely about a fallen queen or failed faith. It becomes a warning about powers buried but never erased, and how one reckless discovery can awaken something ancient that history tried very hard to seal away.
Too late, my friends.
Thoth-Amon. Now, Thoth-Amon is one of the most enduring dark wizards in Robert E. Howard's Conan saga.
He comes from Stygia and has the title Thoth-Amon of the Ring.
In Howard's original stories, he crosses Conan's path twice in The God in the Bowl and in The Phoenix on the Sword, which happens to be the very first Conan tale ever written. The interesting part is that the two never meet face to face in those originals. Conan stumbles into Thoth-Amon's schemes by chance, yet later writers turn the sorcerer into the Cimmerian's full-time arch-nemesis. L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter push him to the forefront in their pastiches. Marvel Comics paints him as
Conan's lifelong foe with Barry Windsor Smith's ram horn headdress design, and Dark Horse later gives him a more traditional Stygian look. Within the lore, Thoth-Amon is one of the most powerful of Stygian sorcerers, a member of the dreaded Black Ring, feared even by Stygia's own rulers.
He claims devotion to the Serpent God Set, but his true loyalty lies within his personal power. His cruelty and ambition trace back to a childhood of poverty, an abusive father, and a single promise to his sister that he would escape that life.
He murders a friend named Aman to steal an acolyte position with the priests of Ibis, studies forbidden scrolls, discovers the lost might of Acheron,
and nearly dies before the Black Ring of Set revives him. From there, betrayal comes easy to him. He frames mentors, assassinates rivals, manipulates royal succession through a young heir named Stefan,
and eventually rules Stygia from the shadows under the new name Thoth-Amon.
Wars erupt, the worship of Ibis fails, the cult of Set rises, and Calanthus, once his fellow priest, becomes his chief enemy.
When Thoth-Amon finally seeks Acheron's ultimate power,
he unleashes monsters instead of mastery. Confronted by Calanthus and rebels, he realizes control is impossible and seals the portal himself, proving that even the greatest sorcerer sometimes meets a force beyond his grasp. As I was mentioning earlier, Howard became a part of Lovecraft Circle, which was basically a group of writers who shared correspondence, and you'd be surprised to know that Lovecraft wrote nearly 100,000 letters to these people. That's some number. Robert E. Howard was anyway an exceptional writer who knew world building pretty well, but his collaboration with Lovecraft changed things for the better, and now the villain's got several new characteristic traits, origins, and abilities. So yeah, that was the not so weird tale of two writers from about 100 years ago who changed the way horror and fantasy is perceived today as a genre. That was all in this one, folks. If you liked the video, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Those two small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these lore lockdowns. Stay safe and have a good one.